Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lorraine Alternative Homesteading. It's March 10, 2024 on Sunday afternoon, or almost evening. It's 5:48 p.m. here. I hope everybody's doing well. I got a little sidetracked. I was watching some videos, responding to some of your comments, but I wanted to pick up where I left off in reading some of Global Thuggery Insights on Control by Terror, Torture, Targeting American Citizens by Corkin Cherubini. And the criminals folded the cover page back. They like to do this to my books. They like to fold the corner back because they're losers. I guess they don't know how to read. Okay, so they don't like to read. But I'm going to tell you, before I get started, please hit the thumbs up. Welcome newcomers. And thank you, everybody, for your comments. Okay, so before I get started, this morning, and of course, this is what happens every Friday into Saturday, Saturday into Sunday, Sunday into Monday. The criminals are on my property and they're doing the stupid perp tricks. Immature, they're dumb, it's psychological operation, and they're very sneaky and disgusting. So what they did is they went to one of my solar motion lights that are posted to a wood post holding up the roof of one of my buildings. And what they did is they sliced the wood post vertically from top to bottom. They pulled off the solar panel from the light fixture attached to the wood post. They turned it to the pointed portion and stuck the pointed portion of the solar panel, which was attached to the electrical wires, into the slice in the wood post that they sliced. So yeah, it was sticking out today, and we had a lot of rain. We had rain overnight, winds and stuff. So this is what they do to destroy your belongings. And I guess their little weenies, their little knickers are in a knot, because we're not going to stop speaking out against these criminals. And I just wanted to say that when I spoke to Ryan Mitchell yesterday, we might collaborate on some work in the future in either my writing an article, a psychological article. I told him that my interest is in the false diagnoses of targeted people, a false flag, criminalizing people so that nobody believes us. And it's a sign of medical fraud, insurance fraud, psychiatric fraud, by falsely diagnosing, falsely labeling somebody because they speak the truth, or because they report a crime or are a whistleblower, or just because they've been placed in the program by somebody in a position of authority that has some money to line their pockets, and they'll just do anything for money. And because, like the police, they're very sadistic and cruel, like those Manalapan police. But let me tell you, it's not just Manalapan. I know of another woman in New Jersey that the same thing happened to, and she happens to be an attorney. They did the same thing to her. They kidnapped her and stuck her in a psych ward. And then another whistleblower whose photos I posted under the community section, 61-year-old woman whistleblower, they kidnapped her too. This was a couple of years ago, and stuck her in a psych ward. And then they did the same thing to Kim Straub, who is passing out flyers for targeted justice. Don't do that, folks. Targeted justice is not going to stand up for you. They didn't stand up for her back then. In fact, Ella Fraud ostracized her on the air for handing out flyers instead of coming to her support. So Kim was handing out flyers and was arrested by the police officer who stole the evidence out of her bag and medically kidnapped her and stuck her in a psych ward. This is what they do to men and women to silence them. It is a form of torture. It is trauma-based mind control. It's satanic ritual abuse, and it lines the pockets of these despicable medical professionals. I can't even call them professionals. Okay? They violate their oaths to do no harm. And that's what they do. So, yes, so I would like to collaborate on bringing attention to the fact that the police co-opt these behavioral people to falsely diagnose somebody that they just met. They have no criteria. It's already pre-planned. They've got it in their little agenda book. And this is the way they profit off of another person's misery. So yes, I would like to collaborate on bringing this problem, this systemic problem, across the country. It's actually across the world, but I'm going to focus on across the United States, to the attention of some citizen journalists who will do a story on it. So anyway, that's my forward for this section here. So I'm going to start from number 57, or I should say page 173. I think it's chapter 57. He has the book labeled a little oddly, but it kind of makes sense. But I'm accustomed to reading per chapter, not subsections and whatever. So he's got chapter 57, number 1, the tire fiasco. It was around noon on Saturday following Halloween that we cherubs decided one of us had to travel south to make sure that pipes had not frozen in our Tennessee home. We had just 4 new tires installed on our vehicle the day before, so when my wife volunteered to go, since she's the one who deals with home maintenance entities, I didn't suffer the qualms I might have had we not had the new tires. It was raining, and the weather report called for high winds and snow later in the day with possible power outages. I didn't want her stranded with no power and no vehicle if I were the one to travel south. By 12:30 p.m. she was on her way, and every hour or so I talked with her on the phone. Though she was driving well under the 70-mile-per-hour speed limit because of the inclement weather, she seemed to be making good time. Needless to say, I was surprised when I received a call from her 20 minutes or so after our last conversation. I stopped for gas here in Lowell, Massachusetts, she said, and another customer was kind enough to inform me that my front left tire needed air. Great. Did you fill it up, I asked? She said, I tried, but the air started to go in, and even though it was pretty dark, I could tell the tire was getting huge bubbles in the sidewall, so I stopped adding air. When I started inside the store to call AAA, there was a loud explosion. The tire had burst open. Oh my God, did you get AAA? Yes, but it's going to be almost an hour before somebody gets here. Listen, I need to get off the phone in case they try to call. I'll let you know what happens. I was in disbelief. When we hung up, I sat staring at the phone in a state of disbelief. Why would a brand new tire lose air? We'd never had a problem with this brand before. She said she hadn't hit anything, including potholes that sometimes unexpectedly appear in otherwise smooth highways. From what she could tell, the other tires looked okay. I was amazed at how calm she seemed. I was on the edge of panic. We had purchased the tires from a local chain, and I thought she probably needed to be towed to the nearest one to have a new tire installed. Immediately, I called the tire department at our local big box chain store and explained what had happened. The tire department manager said he'd never heard of anything like what he was describing. I asked for the location of a store with a tire department in Lowell. There wasn't one. The nearest one was in Tewksbury, and they're closed at 8. She'd never make it there in time, I thought. I could feel my blood pressure rising. What now? I called her again. After a 30-minute wait, she had called AAA again. The driver had gotten lost and said he did not furnish replacement tires. By then, it was 20 until 8. The big box store was definitely out. I told her to have the spare put on and start back to Maine. She wasn't excited about that prospect. She'd just driven 5 hours in pouring rain, and she knew it was snowing north of Augusta. Driving in snow, especially at night, was not something she was willing to do, what she would do willingly. We decided that if conditions got terrible, she could find somewhere to spend the night. Reluctantly, she agreed and started north. I talked with her again shortly before she reached New Hampshire. It was still raining, she said, and she was driving slowly under 50 miles per hour because of the spare. I encouraged her to continue, but not to hesitate to stop if conditions got rough, and she promised that she would. More tire trouble. And stop she did. At the Seabrook, New Hampshire Welcome Center. The tires did not sound right, she told me later. So she decided to check to make sure that she wasn't just hearing things. Sure enough, the front right tire was so low it was almost on the rim. AAA to the rescue again. When the driver attempted to fill the front right tire, it too developed bubbles in the sidewall. Fortunately, this one did not explode. She had him check the rear tires, and they were low on air as well. Personnel on duty at the Welcome Center were most helpful. Since they were open all night, they encouraged her to spend the night inside. She thanked them but stayed in the car with her dog. What was going on? Nobody could believe that 4 brand new, top of the line, 900,000 mile warranty tires would just go over 200 miles before failing. I looked on the manufacturer's website to see if there had been any recalls on these tires. Others, yes, but not these. Even the company representative I spoke to on Monday agreed that the chances of getting 4 defective tires were almost about 1,000,000 to 1. I had my suspicions, though. Death by accident is the deniable modus operandi for quote-unquote gang stalking tactics. The more I thought about, the angrier I became. Such tactics were unconscionable. Were other vehicles, probably many with children on board, on an early Saturday evening simply considered to be collateral damage when front tires blew on a busy Massachusetts I-495 or I-290 through Worcester, Massachusetts, and the driver lost control? Not only could my wife and dog have been killed or seriously maimed, but others could have lost their lives as well. Fortunately, someone was kind enough to notice the tire and tell my wife about it. That person probably saved many lives that evening. Sunday, 6 a.m., Sunday morning, my wife was ready to call AAA again. When the AAA driver who had helped her at the Welcome Center that night before returned to see if she was still there. It was just about time for him to get off from work, and he told her. But he was in the area and thought he would check on her. Another act of kindness. He towed her to the nearest big box store, but because they did not have the right size tires, AAA had to be called a third time to tow her to the Portsmouth, New Hampshire store. Meanwhile, I was becoming edgier and edgier. Wet snow was piling up outside the cabin. While it had not been sticking to the pavement Saturday evening, the temperature had dropped several degrees, and snow was now several inches deep. Even many of the birches along the private lane leading to our cabin were bent over from the weight of the snow. I wondered what the roads were like, especially the 30-some miles of rural roads leading to our cabin. I decided I had better try to shovel enough snow from the beginning of the lane so my wife could get the car off of the road. It was 12:30 before the new tires were in place, and my wife again started north. It had been raining all morning, but big wet flakes started falling once she was back on the road. By the time she reached Augusta, the interstate had a light blanket of snow, and snowplows couldn't begin to keep one lane totally cleared. Under normal circumstances, my wife is a cautious driver. But even though emergency road signs advise 45 miles per hour, she told me she rarely got above 40. She couldn't believe how fast some of the vehicles, including several 18-wheelers and a tourist bus, were going as they passed her. Between Waterbury and Bangor, the roads grew worse. No snowplows. The temperature had dropped to 30 degrees, and an icy crust covered both sides of the road. Darkness was quickly encroaching, and even though it was not even 4 p.m., my wife dropped her speed to 25 and 30 miles per hour. Conditions grow treacherous. I spoke with her once more before my phone lost battery power. The electricity had gone off several hours before. She told me she had seen at least 10 or 12 vehicles that had gone over the embankments flanking each side of the highway. It was impossible to read road signs, and there was nowhere to even pull over safely. She said she'd probably stay in the rest stop before Bangor. She didn't feel safe. She didn't feel that she could drive any further under these conditions. I agreed, though I didn't see how she could possibly spend one more night in the car, especially in the freezing weather, even though she did have blankets and at least half a tank of gas. At least I had plenty of blankets and quilts and lots of candles, and the temperature in the house was staying above 50. The more I thought about the situation, the angrier I became. Here I was, stranded, and unable to go to her aid or even communicate with her. I had no idea what might be happening. Had she made it to the rest stop? Was she warm? Did she have enough gas to keep her car warm? The questions would not stop tumbling around in my mind. Had I really known what was going on, I might have hiked the 30-some miles to where she was. She missed the rest stop. Visibility was so bad she could not clearly see the exit, and rather than take a chance of going down an embankment, she continued driving. As she passed the entrance, she was able to make out a darkened building in the distance. The rest stop had apparently lost electricity. As she later explained to me, she was in a near state of panic herself. Shortly before the rest stop, she had momentarily lost control of her vehicle. Somehow she had managed to keep the car from ramming into the railings on each side of the road, probably because her speed at that point was well under 30 miles per hour. After passing the darkened rest stop, she decided to look for a motel in Brewer. She just hoped she would be able to see the exit for I-395. Favorable phone call. Half of Brewer was in darkness. No motels beckoned. Later she found out that most of the ones on IA had lost electricity and were closed. Finally, she found something open, a market. She went inside to use the restroom and got a hot cup of coffee and a bite to eat. That's when she decided to spend the night in the market's parking lot. About that time, our daughter called. Appalled by the situation, she insisted that her mom go to a motel. My wife said she was not driving one more inch in search of some place that might be open. Using her smartphone, my daughter was able to locate a place that would allow the dog inside just a block away from the market. And as a result, my wife slept warmer than I did Sunday night. By Monday morning, 12 to 14 inches of snow covered the roof of the cabin and barn. The temperature in the house remained at low 50s and still no electricity. A neighbor had told us about being without electricity for almost 2 weeks the previous December, so I had no idea what to expect. I was able to use a candle setup to heat coffee water, but toast was out of the question. Instead, I had a few snacks and went to shoveling the entrance to the lane once again. Surely my wife would show up any time now. I was back at the cabin for a breather and another cup of coffee to help warm me up when my mom's poodle mix started yapping. I looked out the window, and there, trudging through the snow, was my wife. Almost 48 hours to the minute after she left on Saturday. Nothing could have been more welcome. Typical of her practicality, she had stopped to purchase a kerosene heater and a grill in case it was sometime before the electricity was restored. But within 20 minutes of her arrival, electricity flickered on. The issue of 4 brand new, defective, top-of-the-line tires still rankles. Were we looking at some sick Halloween trick on part of the installers? Or were the tires defective to begin with? One tire losing air, then bursting when it's filled, makes me wonder. 4 begs the question. Note: we have the better parts of numerous notebooks and journals documenting an array of incidences, such as the #1 tire fiasco. In fact, there were so many that we decided to offer a different volume with incidents and episodes not included in this book. Now, I want to add that this happened to me when I lived at 52 Sutton Drive in Manalapan, New Jersey. I decided to buy 4 brand new top-of-the-line tires from the dealer. And then criminals stuck tacks in the tires, and they had to be replaced. That's right, brand new tires. Number 58, FOIA request. Found my back issue, September 2013, of Harper's Magazine. No easy task. The reason for the 2-hour search was an article by William T. Vollmann, Vollmann, entitled Life as a Terrorist. This longish piece is mostly about Vollmann's being investigated as a possible Unabomber. He requested and received some pages of his FOIA, Freedom of Information Act documents from the FBI. They sent him 250 pages of the almost 800-page file. By comparison, Elvis had only 660 pages. 660. And Hemingway, 130, when he took his own life, possibly because of the constant surveillance and harassment by the feds, as some writers have postulated. And then John Steinbeck had just a few less than Ernest when he died rather early from a mysterious heart attack following numerous mini strokes. The same type of runaway palpitations day after day that I have experienced as my level of being targeted has risen. While 800 pages sounds huge, because it's huge and probably cost taxpayers much more than the Louis fiasco of the 1960s, the sheer size of Vollmann's FOIA files begins to appear minuscule when compared to Frank Sinatra's 1,300 pages and the astounding 1,500 pages devoted to Malcolm X. So enough material to do quite a few more films on Malcolm X and a couple or more movies on Vollmann. What do these figures have to do with me? Plenty. I recently requested my own FOIA file, and after saying in 2014 that with all the redacting that I might find, it seemed like a waste of time and money. An attorney gave me other reasons. But from 2014 until present, many important questions are still looming. It makes sense to spend a few more minutes and dollars to see what they are surmising or fantasizing. And then he says, see note. My request was made almost a year ago, and as of today, I have had no response saying that there either is or is not information about me in the files. That's sort of like, we can't confirm or deny you're on the list in the name of national security. Indeed, in their spooky, twisted minds, the FBI evidently imagined that they saw Vollmann's flamethrower. One gets the feeling that the unhumans, or un-Americans as Vollmann calls them, can and do fabricate most anything they please. For our entire lives, we have heard about the quote-unquote thugs, the assassins, and the spooks, using smoke and mirrors, twisting the lie enough that the lie becomes the truth, and playing enough dirty tricks to ruin an entire world. In sharp contrast to the truth twisters is an honest and great author who readily admits that he would love to have a flamethrower. Volman further confesses that he likes nearly everyone he meets, the feds included, it seems. If a casual reader has trouble believing that statement, please note that Volman qualified the statement with nearly, quote-unquote, obviously feeling rage about the treatment of filmmaker and whistleblower Laura Poitras and the Guantanamo detainees makes him more than human. Those feelings make him humane. Perhaps, like almost everyone, would like the goal of all of us, especially government employees, and especially since hatred is being equated with felonious behavior these days. I cringe to think how many of my friends and acquaintances throughout the years hated everything and everybody with a passion. I should know about hatred. After all, for the first 20 years of my life, I hated commies. We kids learned extreme commie hating in school, at home, in the movies, on TV, in books, newspapers, and on the playgrounds. I'd never met a commie, but the hatred was so embedded that when I went to college and heard rumors that one of the professors was a commie, as well as an alcoholic and a sex pervert, I avoided his classes at least until the draft closed in. Vietnam years helped me stop hating commies. Would I be dead now if I continued to hate commies with a passion? Probably. Some of the civil rights leaders warned an oppressed population to avoid hating their oppressors. So does the anger kills volume. Though we might consider hatred to be compressed or repressed anger, they, quote-unquote, the unhumans, are well versed in the protocol. Push, agitate, push harder, instigate, push, 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 until the anger explodes and the mind and body disintegrate. It's a subtle war. Psyop on killing. Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman's book, called On Killing, came to me by accident. After a 10-minute mini-scan, it almost became part of the quote-unquote inactive file. But after an index check, it became part of my quote-unquote active file. About half of the book is what one would expect from a retired military officer turned West Point professor. Incidentally, his book is or was required reading at the FBI and DEA academies. I focused on the last 50 or so pages. The roles of the media, video games, and so many other aspects of society at large in keeping us super saturated with violence, desensitizing us to the pain and suffering of others, and providing us with a kind of prepackaged denial defense mechanism that overrides our basic humanity. I'm going to add, folks, that's why the gamers are the biggest perps. The gamers, they play video games. They are desensitized. They are unsocialized and desensitized to the pain and suffering of others. They think it's all a game. What really caught my attention, though, was Grossman's depiction of an aspect of the training Vietnam recruits underwent. In order to manufacture contempt for the enemy, trainees chanted with a left foot emphasis as they ran. I'm not sure if I could say this. I wanna RAPE KILL pillage and eat DEAD. Okay, so it's a mantra. It's something that they chanted. I wanna RAPE KILL pillage and eat the unalived. The chant continues, but the reader should be getting the message that these young men were being desensitized and psychologically indoctrinated to kill without compunction. What is equally as troublesome, however, is that the desensitizing military and law enforcement personnel with similar types of programming may well be responsible for the brutality characteristic of so many law enforcement operations. Also troublesome is the suggestion that a parallel exists between the trainees' firing range performance and reward or lack of it on a simulated battlefield, and that of the video game player. Both are programmed to eliminate the opponent. Grossman's basic training was in 1974. He says that this particular chance has been phased out since our military no longer tolerates this kind of desensitization. But for decades, it was a key mechanism. Thank goodness it's no longer used. But wasn't it in the mid-1970s when the Church Committee was decrying covert surveillance, which was as abusive as it was rampant? Yes. It's all there in the Volman article, where his attorney, David Sobel, S-O-B-E-L, explained the rationale for the 1974 Privacy Act. Yet we wonder if the Church Committee really accomplished very much. Many writers seem to agree that the covert tactics used by some of our law enforcement agencies just went further underground. They're top secret, classified. Even less transparency. What is more disturbing since then? The technologies for surveillance, mind control, remote neural monitoring, etc. has been ramped up, and now the coverts have tools to restructure behavior and thought patterns, or to torture or assassinate from great distances. I'm on my own now, and the reader may be unsure that one cherub can bring sensible closure to a mighty jumble. It's times like these that I'm sure I could use Hemingway and Volman, or the journalist humanitarian T.I. from the area in the Northeast, close to where I spent most of my childhood. Oh well. Part 5 targets Chapter 59, Whistleblowers, their attempt to save us. Whistleblowers are the real heroes of this new millennium, risking their careers and even their lives and freedom to warn us about government, corporate, and institutional misconduct that impacts every citizen in our country. Thanks to William Binney, citizens now understand that each and every phone conversation is and has been collected and stored on monstrous computers. Each citizen also knows that most any electronic device can be used to surveil every word we utter and every move we make. Oh, like that Police song. Every breath you take, every move you make, I will be watching you. Even our appliances can be rigged to spy on us. See, even the police knew. Is that why they chose the name police? Oh my goodness. I don't know. Their song Roxanne comes to mind. I don't know. I'm going to have to delve a little deeper into the Police, the group. And I really like them. I listened to them a lot growing up. But anyway, so even our appliances can be rigged to spy on us. In addition, law enforcement personnel or neighbors could also be watching and collecting data. Oh, no. Not my neighbors. Oh, no, not my sweet little neighbors. No. Whistleblowers like Binney, Dan Bongino, and numerous others have informed us that if this data is collected, it will be used against us. Yes, I am the cat lady. And now I'm the chicken lady. Most all of us who comprise the targeted population of America know the significance of words or actions that can be taken out of context and used against us to smear our character, to vilify us, to demonize us. Yes, the Manalapan police in an incident report called me a cat lady. I never even told them I had one cat. How would they have known? It must be that they must be psychic. When that happens, we are effectively estranged from loved ones or old friends. The result, isolation and brutalization. Even a person who is extremely careful about what he says or does is not safe. The person who believes he or she is the perfect example of one who does no wrong is wrong, wrong, wrong. I mean, I told you, my neighbor called me a skinny little whore. No, and they were throwing pussy willows. They were throwing pussy willows in my backyard. This is what happens when you're a divorced single woman in Manalapan, New Jersey, and start dating. Even if a person is a protege of Mother Teresa, or really is the most perfect person in the world has ever known, covert operatives will use mind control tactics and remote neural monitoring to mar the veneer of even Mr. or Miss Perfect. Because these programs are now so clandestinely embedded in the fabric of our society, we depend on whistleblowers to inform us about them and the people responsible for them. Only then can corrective action be taken. Chapter 60, Defying Jesus, the Whistleblower. Who would Jesus bomb? Was one of my favorite anti-war CDs from maybe the early or mid-2000s. It was written and performed by some of Nashville's older peace advocates who were all musicians. For a while, they were at the same peace meetings I would attend. Their thesis was that Jesus would not have bombed anyone, ever. I found that easy to believe. These days, we seem to have a new war every few months or so. If we run out of countries, we just back up and declare another war on the ones we've already blown to bits. Of course, if things get really boring, there are always the whistleblowers to provide diversion. A major documentary affirms, in fact, that one of our never-ending wars is the war on whistleblowers. Okay, I don't know, Edward Snowden comes to mind, Julian Assange, okay. Then, January 21, 2015, I saw an article on Consortium News entitled Jesus as the Whistleblower, written by Reverend Howard Bess. Connect the dots. If we're at war with whistleblowers and Jesus was a whistleblower, doesn't it follow that we're at war with Jesus and all that he stood for? The mind really, really reels at such a thought. Oh my goodness, guys. So number 61, this is going to be my last one. Reading for this evening, at least now. Targeting nationalities. 15 plus years in New Jersey. And I never see a fist fight, a nickering, torturing, or murder. What I did see was throngs of people going to churches, weddings, and funerals for the very elderly. Throngs getting off work at the glass factories. Bigger throngs at the night spots, and even bigger throngs on the beaches and boardwalks. Throngs enjoying the parks, canoeing on the raceway, swimming in the lakes. Throngs ambling on the avenue at night, young, old, male, and female. Citizens with largely Italian names and heritage, not too different from the evening throngs on the streets and piazzas of any city in Italy, France, Spain, Greece, and Sicily. How can the nationality that gave us Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Botticelli, Luigi Cherubini, Amerigo Vespucci, Columbus, the pizza, Ferraris, and a few thousand, etc., be perceived as ruthless murderers? A few episodes of The Sopranos, and he said, see the note. And we know why. Far too much violence outweighs the positive messages. Cathedrals built by Italian stonecutters, the importance of family and community ties and support, the significance of nature in our lives, the necessity of a code of honor and loyalty in conducting human affairs. It is Tony who mentions that 20 million Italian Americans are essentially model citizens, yet the media, along with the law enforcement, are quick to defame an entire nationality. Wait 1 second. Because of a relatively few have turned to crime, probably a turning that was precipitated by environment as well as societal forces that push, agitate, instigate. The defamation of Italians in America is very real and it's ongoing. And I'm going to tell you guys, I'm Italian. As a preteen, I recall hearing parents talk about it. One parent, mostly Irish heritage, would become livid with rage as one TV program after another showed evil Italians as ruthless murderers. Okay, well, I'm just going to add a note here. You know, there is the mafia. And there are different types of mafias. Some of the mafia, like in New York, were Italian. But that is not indicative of most Italians. Like my grandma came here from Italy and she worked her butt off in a sewing factory. Okay? So anyway, another parent, a second generation Italian, would have no comment, no change of expression, evidently living in America with ruthless murderer seemingly tattooed on the forehead since birth, created a resignation. Who would do such stereotyping? Why would they do it and how could they do it? We know that a tiny fraction of Italians may be imperfect citizens, but with propaganda spewing the media, an entire nationality can be brought down. Propaganda is a divisive weapon. Skin color, skin tone, religion, class distinction, neighborhood, nationality, accent, region, political beliefs can all be used for division instead of inclusion simply by pushing negative perceptions into our minds. Most division, as in the case of the targeted individual program, can be accomplished covertly. We never really know who's behind such propaganda unless we look at who benefits the most. Well, I'm going to tell you that I know for a fact that not my neighbors are spreading defamation and slander to each person that works on my property with your tax dollars. That's a fact. Who has the necessary funding and resources? Who controls most of our media? Who has access to every email, phone conversation, and bedroom, bathroom conversation? Who owns the electronic microwave mind control weapons? Who controls all local, state, and national authorities? Who really controls education, medicine, and life expectancy? Who even controls our weather? In other words, who controls all that moves or doesn't move? Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty, CIA briefing affairs officer and liaison to 3 consecutive presidents, told us half a century ago it was the CIA that controlled the United States and the world. Author and Pulitzer Prize winner Gary Webb said not just one single agency, but the entire government controlled everything. Still, even one ultra-powerful agency with an agenda that is inhumane can wreak havoc on any and all groups that it desires to defame. So I'm going to go back to the note. The note was, in 2019, we viewed The Sopranos for research purposes after having seen the film Gotti, G-O-T-T-I. These are only mob films that we have seen after viewing the portion of The Godfather nearly a half century prior and deciding to boycott similar films that seem to stereotype an entire ethnic group. Okay, so I'm going to end on that note. There is a little bit more, coming down the road on the Italian nationality. Actually, several chapters more. But I'm going to end here. We're at 44 minutes. Please hit the thumbs up and share if you feel inclined to do so. I appreciate every one of you guys. This is Lorraine Alternative Homesteading. I just completed reading some additional chapters in Global Thuggery Insights on Control by Terror, Torture, Targeting American Citizens by Corkin Cherubini. It's on gang stalking, MK Ultra, COINTELPRO, Operation Paperclip, Project Pandora, Mind Control, EMR, Human Experiment, Electronic Dissolution of Memories, AI Satan, Tammy, non-lethal weaponry, and harp. And I'm not talking about the harp that you play with the strings. Anyway, gonna sign off for now. Look forward to your questions and comments down below. Signing off for now.